Okay, real quick guys, before the video starts. So this is gonna be a long video, so if you wanna skip to any particular part, here's kind of a guideline for where you could skip if you're just looking for one thing. Now, a quick disclaimer, I'm gonna get more into this at the very end of the video, but real quick, just so you know what you're watching, Vanatoo has offered to allow me to keep these, and I have accepted. Now, I'm going to try and be as unbiased as I can possibly be, but I feel like it's a good idea to have trustworthy and honest correspondence about what is going on behind the scenes. They have not influenced this review in any way whatsoever. They have not asked me to say anything. They have not requested I say anything. They have not required me to make a good review. These are mine. These are my honest opinions. And here's the video. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the build and functionality. Now for the functionality, I'm not gonna get into everything. I do have another video going over all the functions that this can do because there is a myriad of functions that it does, and that's one of the reasons why I like this product so much. But regarding the physical build, it's kind of a trapezoid box. I'm not sure what the mathematical term for that sort of shape is. It's got a 1-inch tweeter, a 4-inch aluminum cone woofer, and a 4-inch passive radiator on the back or the bottom. There is a bar that comes on these stock out of the box. If you want to just lay them angled, you can either remove that bar, you can flip them over, you can use them upside down, you can flip the bar to the other side to have the tweeter on the top and maintain the passive radiator on the top, but have the speakers face forward. That's actually the exact setup I have right now on the desk. Passive radiator on the top, nothing on the bottom. Just sits straight, and when I sit back, and so it's shooting directly forward instead of shooting up. So I'll go over a few key features of what these do. Okay, the first thing to note is that there are 4 inputs and they do have priorities, and the priority in order goes from analog. That's first priority. Second is USB, which is a full-size USB port, as you see here. An optical input, which if you're gonna plug it into your TV, works off of PCM only. I think Rick, one of the owners of Vanatoo, did warn me that some Sharps don't actually use PCM optical out, so if you have a Sharp, be aware of that. And then number 4 in priority is Bluetooth. Now, this is a personal note and a personal opinion of mine. Why is it that this company, consisting of only 2 people, 2 engineers, 2 owners, they are partners. They took like 5 or 7 years to develop their first product. They're able to do something that no other speaker manufacturer have been able to do. So basically the way the priority works is that you can plug all 4 sources in. You can manually select which input you want with the remote, which has options for volume adjustment, bass, treble adjustment, all those sorts of things. Or you can wait 7 seconds to stop from one source and start playing another source. So let's say I have the USB input on my computer and I want to switch it over to Bluetooth. Well, I can leave Bluetooth on my phone and it will be constantly connected to the Vanatoos. Then I can start playing music off of the USB, and since that is higher up on the priority list, it will instantly start playing. Or if I want to go back to Bluetooth, I stop having any input signal from USB for 7 seconds, and then Bluetooth will automatically resume. And that system of both priority and waiting 7 seconds for something with lower priority works for all 4 sources, because you take out the entire purpose of having a remote. You can use a remote, it's nice for convenience, I'm glad they added it, but it's almost like you don't even need it because of the automatic switching. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, for whatever reason, I find this to be a massive, massive benefit to these speakers. And for me, that's one of the biggest selling points, and honestly, I would recommend them simply for the feature set. Now, on top of the automatic switching electronics, you can select which speaker you want to take left or right. You can switch them. They connect via a Cat 50 cable instead of a speaker cable. Each speaker has its own amplifier and DAC built into it. They have, again, bass and treble adjustments. They have different versions of the DSP depending on what crossover you want to send to the subwoofer. Oh, by the way, there's a subwoofer out. This does anything and everything you could want either a desktop speaker to do or a 2.0 or 2.1 system in your front room. Like I said, if you really want to look at all the features that this has, I will leave a link to both Vanatoo down below and the video I have titled The Vanatoo Experience, talking about all the additional features that this thing can do. There's honestly plenty more, but for time's sake, I want to get to the sound portion of this review. So the sound for this is kind of funny because when I set these up, right after I got them from Rick, we met at a Starbucks because they happen to be local to my area. I live just outside of Seattle. I think they're based in Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. We met at a Starbucks. I brought them home. I put them on my desk. I kind of measured the entire desk. I measured exactly how far away they would be, and I placed them precisely where they should be. And the center image was here. Not here, but here. And I was like, okay, well, that's a problem. Maybe it'll work out with burn-in. And then I was like, no, it's too much. It's too far. There's something off. So I remeasure, I look at the speaker, I look at where the tweeter is, I make sure it's exactly the same length away from my ears, I make sure I'm sitting in the correct position. And the funny thing is that I wasn't listening critically, I was just simply setting it up, making sure that it works. But it was so pinpoint accurate to the right that I was like, one, astounded at how accurate it was, but kind of pissed off that it wasn't centered. And what it was my monitor has an LG symbol at the very bottom. And my monitor was off, I'm not even joking you, it was slightly tilted 1/2 inch off of perfect center. And I was able just to tell from my visual perspective to my audio perspective that it was slightly off center, and it was that precise. So I moved the monitor back and the whole world returned to normal and life could go on. But imaging and soundstage for these things are simply incredible. Now the left-to-right imaging is spectacular. The addition of soundstage and the front to back imaging is very, very, very depthful. Even more depthful than my K-Bosses, which I currently were actually using to compare, because these are more comparable to K-Bosses than they are mica speakers, yet they're a smaller size than the micas. Now the bass, these get substantially lower than the micas, not quite to the level of the K-Bosses. I don't think that even with the passive radiators, I don't think that you can quite make up for the volume of a box of a K-Boss. And just for the sake of example, now these are the micas. If you're on a really tight budget, under $100, you need power speakers with an analog or an RCA input, this is perfect for you. Now, given the size of this versus the size of this transparent Zero, this obviously has the upper hand. Now in terms of clarity, this, while being a very clear speaker, doesn't compare to the Vanatoos. Regarding bass, regarding mid-range, regarding depth, regarding imaging, regarding anything you could measure a speaker by, this does not compare. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this Vanatoo T0 compares more closely to the K-Bosses than it does to the micas. And I mean, just look at this thing. This thing is gigantic. It's a tank. It's like 14 pounds. Now, to be completely fair, do they fill up a room quite like the K-Bosses do? No, not in a large front room space. Now, I'm not sure if the depth is coming from the passive radiator or not. It might be. Now, I'm not trying to exaggerate here. I just want to be honest with my findings. The back of my speakers currently are exactly 3 feet away from the wall behind them. It's just a blank wall, there's nothing on it. But if I'm listening to like live music that has not really intimate recordings, think like Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox, something like that, I feel like I can hear 10 feet back. It is insane. The soundstage that is offered and the left to right accuracy is simply incredible. It honestly shocked me the first time I heard it, because I have heard really clear systems before, which these are very clear. I have heard very bassy systems before, which just have this incredible depth because of the bass, but these just feel alive forward and back, and they're just so good. Now on top of that, they have incredible treble. The mid-range is very well balanced. There are no spikes or unpleasant notes anywhere in the range at all. So we know that they sound good, but where's their practical application? What are they good at? Now these are a jack of all trades type of speaker, and honestly a master of some. These are a perfect gaming speaker. The imaging, the soundstage representation is amazing, as well as the inclusion of bass that at times, probably because the passive radiator is actually moving up and down rather than forward and back, actually vibrates your desk and you feel explosions, you feel gunshots, you feel planes fly over your head. Now I feel like with the bass representation and the soundstage representation that these things have, they're a much more involving experience for gaming than I really expected. I thought they were going to be good, but I didn't think they were going to quite blow my mind like these have. Now you can also use these for music on a desktop, and they work perfectly well for that. The one issue that I have had, if you're going to look for that really deep soundstage, and you probably already know this by now, so if you have your speakers here and here and you have a big monitor in between them, the soundstage kind of stops at the monitor. Mostly because the sound can't bounce off of the wall and come back to your ears, and instead it just hits the back of the monitor and disperses everywhere. So if you're gonna listen to it with a monitor in the way, it's not gonna have quite that depth to it. But the depth, even with a monitor, is pretty much better than any bookshelf that I've heard. One tip of recommendation I do have is that if you have a deep desk, I would actually move the speakers a little bit more forward so that you can get a little bit of the bounce off of the monitor, and it's going to help add to the depth of your music. Because if you get it right, it changes the characteristics of the sound quite substantially. It's pleasant either way. It's great either way. I would use it without complaints either way. But if you can just get that a little bit extra, I would try and go for that. Another question would be, can you use these in a front room? The short answer is yes. I would stick with a smaller front room. If you have a big, gigantic, like 19 foot by 20 feet front room, probably not. It's probably not gonna sound exactly correct. If you added a subwoofer to it, it might work, it could work. But if you got a big room like that, I would actually probably recommend like a 5.1 at least, probably a 7.1 if you can afford it. And obviously you're talking about different price points to these, but these aren't really made to be a front room speaker. This is primarily small listening rooms, but mostly kind of just stick with your desktop use. Between the electronic package on this thing, the feature set, the build quality, because it is a substantially thick and heavy and robust feeling design, between the options with the removable arm and the different positions that you can have the speaker in, the left and right orientation, the subwoofer out, the quality of the Bluetooth that comes out of this. And they have a 3-year warranty. The only question that I have for Vanatoo, and I literally asked Rick this when we met for coffee, why aren't you charging more for these? These are a self-powered pair of bookshelf speakers that fit anywhere and have a sound that hits far above their price and size. You could hook a TV up to it, you could hook a computer up to it, you could hook a record player up to it, you could hook your phone up to it, all at the same time, and it easily switches between any of them, comes with a remote, and comes with a 3-year warranty. They're just an absolutely substantial package for the money. And I'm happy that they're not charging more. I think companies should take 2 lessons from Vanatoo. 1, if you make a world-class product but you offer a 90-day warranty, I'm not gonna be really under the impression that you're under the impression that your product will last. That's kind of a short warranty. I've seen lots of 90 days, I've seen 30 days, and I've seen a year, maybe occasionally 2 years, but definitely hardly ever seen 3 years. So make a product that you and your company can stand behind with features that, instead of making me feel like I wish it had something extra, make me astounded that it has what it has. The second lesson regarding the price is, even if you can make something cost 2 times more, 3 times more, you don't have to. Because if Vanatoo was charging $700 for these things, I'd be like, they're great, but I don't think they're worth $700. But they're not, they're charging half that. And I can say that they made a quality product and they are well worth the price. So the eventual, probably 20 minutes at this point conclusion, talking about these speakers, is that they're extremely pleasant. I feel like they're accurate enough to where if you wanted to, you could mix with just these. You wouldn't need a subwoofer. An overall score for this is going to be 10 out of 10. I know $360 is not cheap, especially for something that is the size of this. It doesn't seem like it'd be that impressive, but if there was ever a video to trust what I say, it's this one. I feel like I do need to clarify, I need to get out of the way, is a big disclaimer for this video. First, I want to say that the trust of an audience and the overall value of audience is way more important than any free product that I could get. Having people return for reviews that they feel that they can trust, reviews that seem as unbiased as possible, is going to benefit my career way more than getting a free pair of speakers. I also want to use the opportunity to use these as my new reference for small speakers, because they really are really good. If they were not good, I would have reviewed them, respectfully declined to keep them, and return them to Vanatoo. That being said, I am going to keep this review as unbiased as I possibly can. My name is Josh. Thank you very much for watching and supporting this channel. If you want to see more reviews of audio equipment, that is pretty much all I do on this channel. Hit that subscribe button if you like it. Leave a comment if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, if you have any experience with Vanatoo. And if you really like what I do, these reviews do take a lot of time to film them, to listen to them. Now, even though I don't have to always buy equipment, sometimes I do, and Patreon really helps. So there's a link for that down below too. There's also an Amazon link for these. Yeah, self-whoring is over. Thanks very much for watching. Sorry for the long video. Bye.